Mock Draft Monday. ESPN's Matt Miller has 3 quarterbacks going inside the top 10. We're going to break down all 32 picks and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everyday. As I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Can you talk to him, baby?
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. And if you tapped in with us on this Monday, you know that it is a mock draft Monday. Yes, we're going over ESPN's Matt Miller's. I believe this might be his first mock draft from the 2025 NFL draft cycle. So there are going to be a lot of fireworks. We have 3 quarterbacks in the top 10. We have 2 of those with the surprise QB fits, and then which playoff teams got better, who is going to unseed the Kansas City Chiefs as Super Bowl champs through the 2025 NFL draft. DP, I want to get started with this, but before we get started, man, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You guys know how we do it here. First pick, the New York Giants trade up for Carson Beck, quarterback out of Georgia. With the second pick, we got another trade. We got the Carolina Panthers trading down, and the Las Vegas Raiders moving up. The Raiders select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado. With the third pick, the Denver Broncos select Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. With the fourth pick, the Tennessee Titans select James Pierce Jr., edge rusher from Tennessee. With the fifth pick, the Washington Commanders select Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle out of Texas. With the sixth pick, after trading down with the Giants, the New England Patriots select Will Campbell, offensive tackle out of LSU. With the seventh pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan. With the eighth pick, the Carolina Panthers select Luther Burton, the third wide receiver from Missouri. With the ninth pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Travis Hunter, wide receiver / cornerback from Colorado. And with the 10th pick, the New Orleans Saints select Quinn Ewers, quarterback out of Texas. Keith, I kind of want to start right here, though, because we've talked about Shedeur to New York. We've talked about Shedeur to New York and Las Vegas. We've talked about Carson Beck to the Giants. But how would you feel with Quinn Ewers going to being the 10th overall pick, New Orleans Saints saying, you know what, it's time to move on from Derek Carr? For Quinn Ewers, I like it because I have questions about his arm talent. And I think you put him in the dome for half the season, you get some really good play out of him because the weather is controlled inside, right? And I think that also the Falcons play in the dome. So I don't mind. I think he can, with his accuracy, ball placement, things like that, and being a timing and rhythm thrower that he is, pairing him with Rashid Shaheed down the field, Chris Olave, whether it's A.T. Perry, Bub Means, whoever, and then of course Alvin Kamara and if Kamara's still there, and then Kendre Miller. I actually don't hate this situation. I'm a little worried. It just depends on what the O-line looks like for him. But other than that, I think it's a solid fit. Is 10 too high for you?
No, I don't think so, DP. I've seen lesser quarterbacks when you're talking about natural feel for the game. Quinn Ewers doesn't have the strongest arm, but he has arm talent, right? And that's the thing that I really brought in with Quinn Ewers as a prospect. I get it. He can't throw the ball, 50 yards on a tightrope. But he has arm talent. Like, he can change the trajectory of the football. He can change the path of the football. He knows how to change speeds, right? It's in baseball, right? Hey, he doesn't have the 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but this guy, fastball is 85, but his curveball is nasty, right? Or he has a splitter that's really good. And sometimes sometimes that's your starting pitchers, right? Usually the 100-mile-per-hour guys are your closers in baseball, right? They just come in for a couple innings, but your starting pitcher could be a guy that just understands ball placement, how to mix pitches, right? How to mix speeds and things like that. So I like Quinn Ewers, and I think it's fitting because there was another quarterback that was small, undersized, didn't have the strongest arm, but he had a high IQ for the game. And that quarterback name was Drew Brees, right? Coming out of Purdue 15, 20 years ago. So I don't mind it. I think Saints fans would embrace it. Now the conversation would be, though, Spencer Rattler's there, another guy who had talent. So that's where I would like kind of bump against, because being down here in the boot in Bayou country, right? People are bought into the idea of Spencer Rattler right now, and especially replacing Derek Carr. I think that would be so quick. I think it, like, the transitions from the three quarterbacks, right, from a PR standpoint, would have to go. Derek Carr plays really bad really quickly, right? So you can get Spencer Rattler in there. Then Spencer Rattler has to play really bad really quick, right? So then you can have a reason to draft Quinn Ewers. And I mean, you're talking about that. You're talking about they probably, if they play that bad that quickly, they're not even picking at number 10. They're picking in the top 3, right? So that's I don't know if this meshes all the way just when you throw in the wrench of the Spencer Rattler conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely that time. I think that's a discussion we probably need to have about the quarterbacks, the rookie quarterbacks in general, in terms of like, or especially Spencer Rattler, like how soon could we see him? Things like that's a topic for another day on this pod as we get closer to training camp. But Keith, I gotta go to the 8th pick. The Carolina Panthers trading down with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders getting Shador, getting Luther Burton III, right? Who I call this year's version of Malik Neighbors. That sub 6 foot, explosive, dynamic, run after catch, contact balance, that yards after the catch type of receiver. Adding him to more than likely extended Deontay Johnson in terms of contract, Xavier Legette, right? That means Adam Thielen walks off into the sunset, probably retires or tries to, maybe he tries to go to Atlanta and play with Kirk Cousins, who knows, right? But he's no longer there. Jonathan Mingle's probably afterthought at this point. I like this, because at the end of the day, like, granted, you're still drafting like top 10, so it means the season didn't go well. All right, season still didn't go well, but you're hoping that the record is because the defense took a hit by trading away pieces and letting actual good players go to get more draft capital, stuff like that, to build around the offense, and the offense looks better. Bryce Young looks better, and that's the reason why you're drafting top 10, because the team just wasn't good. But Bryce showed that improvement, getting Luther Burden to where then everything and everybody in that top 3, that Deontay Johnson, Luther Burden, and Xavier Legette, all are positional, flexible guys. You can move them around how you see fit. They don't have to just be designed to, hey, you play X, you play Z, you play slot. All 3 can play all 3. And I think for Bryce, that's big, especially if we can get Jatavian Sanders taking over that tight end 1 spot, because that's a position the Panthers have missed ever since Greg Olsen left. And if you can do that, I think you feel really, really good about Bryce Young, especially as you get closer to that 5th-year option, the discussions about paying them long term. Hey, if he's making those steps and those growth, and we get more weapons for him, then yeah, you can start doing some things money wise.
Yeah, I mean, because the timeline would be right that you can go and potentially, if you just see anything, and that's the way, and we'll talk about that, right? When we talk about drafting these guys and when do you pay drafted quarterbacks, right? Do you pay them earlier than sooner? Do you pay them as soon as you get an inkling that they might be good and try to lock them into a certain number, rather waiting until they're superstars? So I think that'll be a fun conversation too, DP, that we could have. But I like Luther Burden with the Carolina Panthers. Also, now they would have a trio or big 3 kind of. And then you say you add in a tight end Jatavian Sanders if he can add some stuff too, and they have running back Jonathan Brooks if he can come back healthy. Now that entire offensive skill room is looking totally different from what it did last year and the year before, right? But DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. Coming up next is picks 11 through 20 from Matt Miller's, ESPN's Matt Miller's 2025 NFL mock draft.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. And the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Guys, you can go on the FanDuel Sportsbook app right now and start betting on your NFL and college football betting odds. MVP, Heisman, Super Bowl, National Championship, all of it. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer because FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. With the 11th pick, the Seattle Seahawks select Titora McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. With the 12th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Harold Perkins Jr., edge rusher / linebacker out of LSU. With the 13th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Benjamin Morrison, cornerback from Notre Dame. With the 14th pick, the Indianapolis Colts select Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. With the 15th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Emory Jones Jr., offensive tackle out of LSU. With the 16th pick, the Cleveland Browns select Abdul Carter, edge rusher from Penn State. With the 17th pick, the Chicago Bears select Michael Williams, edge rusher from Georgia. With the 18th pick, the Los Angeles Chargers select Evan Stewart, wide receiver out of Oregon. With the 19th pick, the Los Angeles Rams select Connor Wegman, quarterback out of Texas A&M. And with the 20th pick, the New York Jets select Riley Leonard, quarterback out of Notre Dame. Keith, I have a feeling
we got to start the quarterback.
I'm about to say,
we got to start the quarterback. It's not even a feeling, DP. We can jump, we can skip the feelings, baby. Let's get to the quarterbacks. It's just a matter of which one do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about?
Let's start right here at 20, Keith.
All right,
Riley Leonard going from Duke to Notre Dame to the Big Apple to New York with those Jets. How do you feel about this fit, man?
It's so many different dynamics that play into the New York Jets, right? I'm not 100% sure of Aaron Rodgers' contract. Initially, when he signed, it was a 2-year contract, was it? I believe something like that. So obviously, he's going to be the successor to Aaron Rodgers, right? Now what we seen from Riley Leonard last year at Duke was honestly he's probably a better runner with the football, right? And just a gamer than what he was an actual passer. Now him going to Notre Dame in a better situation, DP, you will hope that you see better things from Riley Leonard. Taking him this high, you would insert him and he's probably going to have to play, would you say immediately? I think some of this is going to be up to Aaron Rodgers if he decides to come back one more year or not. But that's a lot placing that on his shoulders when there's still that developmental threshold that we would like to see as talent evaluators, right? Before just placing the guy from Notre Dame, right, the Golden Domers, into another high-level, high-pressurized situation with the team, DP, probably as currently constructed, that you would say is probably ready to win. I think they're all in, but also there's still some young pieces that they can potentially be all in for a couple of years as far as feeling like we can make a playoff run. All we missing is a good quarterback.
Yeah, it's a, with Aaron Rodgers, they, right now, of course, he's locked in 2024. They will have to eat some dead cap, but they will get some cap savings back if they cut him post June 1 or if he retired post June 1, next offseason 2025. But it's more so 2026. You open up, they save 49 mil. They have 14 mil in dead cap. So
they'll have him. They'll have him for 2025 also, unless
they got some void years in there too. Like 2026 through 2029 are like voided years in that contract. So it's some wiggle room after 2024 or 2025 situation. But for Riley Leonard, I think it's a spot where you have talent around you. Great run, a really good run game. The offensive line should be, much improved. They drafted Olu Fashanu this past draft, so that's a really good fit to that offensive line, especially to learn behind, learn alongside Tyron Smith and Moses. I forget
Morgan Moses.
Morgan Moses. So I think good situation for him. I need to see that step as a passer. You know what I mean? Because watching him in 2023 before he got hurt, it was more playmaking with the legs. And that's how they beat Clemson, right? Like the run, the 40-yard run kind of set that tone that week one game. I need to see him develop as a passer before I put him in the top 20. I just, I mean, I have way too many questions watching him play in the ACC. Remember me hosting and leading the Clemson podcast. I had to watch all those ACC teams and the players on their schedule. And for him, there was just too much inconsistency throwing the ball to where I don't think he's a top 20 pick right now, but the potential is there. Now, Keith, up top at 19, the Los Angeles Rams say, let's go ahead, plan ahead, right? Plan for the future. Connor Wegman, quarterback out of Texas A&M, and you being the SEC scout over for us at the Draft Network, I know you've gotten your eyes on Connor Wegman throughout this college career. Talented kid. I can't remember if he was I don't think he was a 5-star. I believe he was a 4-star recruit, but it was a guy that had, as a high school player, had game. 19. This is the first time I've seen his name in a first-round mock draft. So this is a shock. This is a little bit of surprise. Like, how do you feel about that?
Right. I get it. I'm the do the SEC scouting, SEC guy, right? But listen, you can't put this on me, DP. You cannot put this on me. And the reason why I'm saying this is because last year he threw 119 passes. So
Right.
that's not enough for an evaluation, DP. So I can't even speak on that firmly. This is probably pure projection. I hear buzz coming out of there, right? I remember him from high school. I remember him being an ultra talented kid. It's just that when it was finally his time, which I think was going to be last year, because it was, the conversation between him and Max Johnson, and they wound up playing, I think, 4 quarterbacks last year because the people kept getting injured. He just had limited snaps. Now, does he have the opportunity to grow and to show that he's a very talented guy? Yes, of course he does. But like you said, this is all probably pure conversations and pure projection. It has to be, because there just aren't enough snaps taken. You're talking about 119 and 132, right? For a quarterback, you're talking about 250 pass attempts over the last 2 years. Like that's nothing, right? That's not even
crazy.
Yeah, that's not even half a season in a sense, right? When you talk about as far as snaps taken. So I look at it as I don't mind it, but can this Rams team with finally having, and they had it this past year with Jared Verse, which I think they knocked the entire draft out of the park, one of my favorite drafts of all NFL teams. Do they decide to take that route, or do they go again? Let's build our team, right? Use the first round on some talent that we like, and then go shake some trees with some disgruntled veteran quarterbacks, right? See which quarterbacks are a little angry, and then Sean McVay and Les Snead decide, like, you know what? Let's go do it again, right? Let's offload these draft picks again, and let's go get us a veteran quarterback, because now our team is ready to go and move forward. So I wonder, and you see this with teams, like, and we talk about this, the Steelers, when they won in the 70s, when they won in the early 2000s, right? It was defense, it was run game, it was tough, kind of different type of quarterback, Terry Bradshaw, Ben Roethlisberger, right? The wide receivers, they went a certain way. You look at the Dallas Cowboys when they won in the 70s, they won in the 90s, right? It was the triplets in the 70s, it was the triplets in the 90s. So you see teams, they replicate from time to time, DP. They have a culture, right? Or just an identity. And I wonder if the Rams have found something that they want to continue to go back to, right? To say, hey, let's build this team up, and then let's go trade for a quarterback and get some more pieces. So that'll be, I just don't know if they're going to go through the process of growing and developing, because they tried that with Jared Goff, and they may feel like it. Well, we know they felt like they couldn't get it done with him. So we'll see.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is definitely a projection type of situation for Connor Wegman. Be interesting to see how he plays, staying healthy, full season in the SEC with Texas A&M. Like, if you can get it done, you can get it done. You can be one of these risers, because that's a name that hasn't really been talked about a lot in the 2025 QB class is Connor Wegman. So, Matt Miller for introducing that name. You know what I mean? And if he ends up as a first round pick, that'll be big time. Talking about a big time season to get yourself up there in the first round, especially top 20. But right now it's a little bit too high. I got to go before we transition. Pick 11 to Torrey McMillan to the Seattle Seahawks was an interesting thought process. And I read the blurb. He talked about the fact that Tyler Lockett is entering the season as a 32-year-old player, you know what I mean, a little bit older. Him and DK Metcalf have potential outs on their contracts that the team could exercise to get rid of either player if they decided to. And having JSN, who we expected we would like to see a bigger role for, adding to Tor McMillan is either one of two things. If you lose Tyler Lockett, JSN can fill those shoes, and then you add to Tor McMillan, and then you got DK Metcalf as the X. Him and Tor can really flip sides as the X and Z. Both of them 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 200+ pound receivers. DK that vertical threat to Tor, that kind of do it all weapon, and then JSN just basically that chain mover, that guy that could play the Z, could play the slot, he could do whatever. If this were to happen, for one of you picking 11, that and you don't go quarterback, that means you're still comfortable with Geno Smith. But if you're picking 11, did Geno Smith play well enough for you to win more games? And that's going to be a discussion.
And real quick, DP, are we transitioning to Sam Howell, right? That had minimal flashes at the Commander. So there's a bunch of different things I agree with the Seattle Seahawks that a lot has to play out. And if they're picking at 11, like what direction do they want to go moving forward? And this defense could just be one of those vaunted be one of the better defenses. And then they put themselves in position that we just have to figure out a couple minor tweaks on the offensive side of football. But DP coming up, my favorite part of the mock draft, baby, is what picks 21 through 32. We're going to talk about it. ESPN's Matt Miller's 2025 NFL mock draft coming up next, picks 21 through 32.
Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your number one ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Why? Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need in the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car and make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your number one ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day shot for being our everydayers. Picks 21 through 32 with the 21st pick, the Miami Dolphins select Deion Walker, defensive tackle out of Kentucky. With the 22nd pick, the Atlanta Falcons select JT Tuimoloau, edge rusher from Ohio State. With the 23rd pick in this mock draft, the Houston Texans select Jonah Savannah, offensive tackle. He has him as a guard from Arizona. With the 24th pick, the Green Bay Packers select Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle from Ohio State. With the 25th pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select Isaiah Bond, wide receiver from Texas. With the 26th pick, the Buffalo Bills select Nick Scourton, edge rusher from Texas A&M. With the 27th pick, the Dallas Cowboys select Quinshawn Judkins, running back from Ohio State. With the 28th pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. With the 29th pick, the Baltimore Ravens select Tyler Booker, guard from Alabama. With the 30th pick, the Detroit Lions select Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver from Ohio State. With the 31st pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select Anthony Belton, offensive tackle from NC State. And with the 32nd pick, the San Francisco 49ers select a Johnny Cornelius, offensive tackle out of Oregon. At pick 30, Keith, this is an interesting fit to me because I think I put it in my report. I think we talked about it on the pod when I did the profile. Emeka Egbuka reminds me in comps to, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Then to put him on the same team as Amon-Ra St. Brown is interesting, to say the least. Because you got two very similar skill sets who thrive in the same position and same alignment.
Yep.
Again, I think we talked about Evan Stewart. I think there was another receiver we've seen in the recent mock draft to the Lions. I keep coming back to it. I want a big body guy. Let me get an X receiver if you're going to do, or let me get a guy that not saying Emeka Egbuka has to play out of the slot, like he can't play at the Z. I think he can, but his best tape to me is lined up in the slot. And Amon-Ra St. Brown's best tape, and the fact that he just got paid is because he's dominant in the slot. I would like to see an outside receiver that could take some of that pressure off of Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? A guy that can push vertical, a guy that can take the safety with him, a guy that can play the back shoulder fade, whatever it may be, to play that true X spot. And then you could, if Jameson Williams is the Z and Amon-Ra is your slot, I think that's a really good situation. But, it was an interesting pick when I saw the name come across the screen.
Yeah, and I thought the same thing, and I agree with you, right? You think that they would probably fare better with, and we got to find another one of these guys in this draft class, DP, a Titor McMillan, right? One of those big body XY receivers, right? And let Amon-Ra continue to dominate the middle of the field, right? And then you mix that in with the Jahmyr Gibbs conversation. The real quick talking point, we've talked, I think the last mock draft was for sure, but maybe the past two, the pairing has been Ollie Gordon to the Dallas Cowboys that we said we liked. I can be honest with you, with the Quinshawn Judkins to the Dallas Cowboys, I like even more. Just from skill set and pairing, and I think he's more closely comped, and he's not similar, but what I'm saying is style more closely to Ezekiel Elliott, right? From a frame perspective and what he can do than Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon is that big burly back, get downhill, let him get the yards, right? I think Quinshawn is more closely paired to an Ezekiel Elliott. So that was just the one situation that paired out for me that I was like, you know what? First time I'm seeing this team and player pairing, and I actually like it more.
And Judkins gives you more as a receiver, similar to my comp for him is Kareem Hunt. He's going to give you the contact balance, the big play speed, the burst, the acceleration, but also he catches the ball really well out of the backfield. And I think that was it's been Ollie Gordon this entire time, but seeing Quinshawn there gives him that 3-down running back because he also is good in pass pro. And again, let's get back to playing Dallas Cowboys football that we're accustomed to. You know what I mean?
Yep, no, I
got to go to.
Go ahead.
I got to go to Houston. Jonah Savaiinaea. I finally got the pronunciation right. I've been battling this for like the past month. Jonah Savaiinaea, the tackle guard from Arizona, going to Houston. I like this a lot. I think, and I know that we've talked about Jonah's game, through our scouting meetings and everything. But if his arms were 35 inches, true, I'm gonna say this, Keith. He reminds me a little bit of J.C. Latham. And the things that people said about J.C., I think they would say about him, I think his arms are shorter, and that's going to be the thing that kicks him down the guard. But I like him. I think he's physical. He's strong. He can move bodies off the ball, and especially as a puller. And in this run game, I think, it's Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's the lead back now. Dameon Pierce is still there somewhere.
It has to be. Right. So I'm looking at this offensive line, DP, because the Texans were in my region also, right? As far as teams. And so, right, for the 2024 season, and we had to look at the contract stuff, right? But I know they have Kenyon Green, right, who's slated to play one of the guards. Then they have Drew Scruggs, right, which is rookie second-year player. And then they have Shaq Mason. So that's the interior offensive line. So he would have to come in and kind of unseat one of those players. And I'm assuming if you're picking a target, it's probably – not Shaq Mason because he's the proven veteran that's good, but I guess it's Shaq Mason because Kenyon Green is still on a rookie contract. So that'll be an interesting dynamic with drafting him. But I do agree with, after I've evaluated him, he may be best at guard, right? Instead of playing offensive tackle. So that'll be interesting to see just how that draft stock, how the Houston Texans offensive line play, and how that pairing fares out.
Especially because of the fact that we know that CJ Stroud, if you give him a pocket to step into, he's going to climb it and get the ball out. You know what I mean? Where we see a lot of these quarterbacks nowadays tend to drift back in the pocket. So I think that's a really good fit. I also love Deion Walker going to Miami, right? You lose Christian Wilkins to the Raiders in the free agency. You couldn't pay him. He left and walked off into free agency. You have Jalen Phillips coming. He'll be healthy. Chop Robinson you drafted. You got Bradley Chubb. I believe they drafted another edge rusher in the 2024 NFL draft. And just putting big Deion Walker. You talk about Josh Allen, Drake May, and whoever's in New York. Well, by this mock draft, it's going to be Riley Leonard. all these guys have to be prepared to deal with an onslaught from that defensive line, because no matter who's on the edges and where guys are lining up, I could see a situation where Bradley Chubb is lined up as kind of a stand-up edge beside Deion Walker. You get Chop Robinson on one edge, Jalen Phillips on the other, on 3rd and 10 with the game on the line, and now you got yourself a really dangerous pass rush with 4 guys that can get after the passer. And typically, Keith, who would you prefer to double team? A really good interior guy, because he's right in the face of your quarterback. And as you talked about it, I think you said he is Latu Latu in terms of pass rush ability at the defensive tackle spot. And I remember watching
the hand maneuvers.
The hand maneuvers are ridiculous for a 6'6", 350 pound defensive tackle. So I like that fit a lot. Overall, pretty good projection mock draft by Matt Miller over at ESPN. Shout out to Matt for giving everybody this mock to have fun with and kind of dissect and go through. Definitely some shocks, some surprises, Keith, of some players that either we didn't expect to see in the mock because we didn't think they were first round picks off the rip right now, and just some interesting fits overall. But solid mock by Matt Miller.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Invoke 2 surprise quarterback names, right? And then we've seen some different fits. We've seen the Raiders move up to grab Shedeur Sanders, which I definitely agree with that process and that notion. But DP,
we didn't get no Jalen Milroe, man. What are we doing? We projecting Connor Wegman and Riley Matt. Come on, brother. No Jalen Milroe.
We'll see. We'll have to talk to him, man. We have a conversation with him when it's time. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. If you can hear my voice, man, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to comment and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel over here at Locked On NFL Draft. Shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we always like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.